Well, it's 1 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. This is the Student Staff Development Task Force Roundtable. We've got some goals for today, but first I'll introduce myself. My name is Becky Todd. I'm the Director of Programs at the University of Arkansas. And presenting with me to, I guess on my right, is Erik Maki. I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, hi folks. My name is Erik Maki. I'm the Managing Director over at Texas Tech University, and I appreciate y'all being here today, so thank you.
So Erik and I serve on the Student Staff Development Task Force that is newly developed here within NIRSA, and it was developed at the request and persistence of Chrissy and Matthew. And they've joined us today from California and Ohio, so I'll ask them to introduce themselves.
Sure. Good morning, y'all. Thanks so much for having me. My name is Chrissy Galley. I use the SHE series. I'm the Staff Development Student Experience Specialist at UC Berkeley, and I co-chair the NIRSA Student Staff Development Task Force with Matthew.
Yeah, and I'm Matthew Altendorf. I'm the coordinator for Student Staff Training and Development at Ohio State University. It's great to see so many people on here and have not been to Region 4, so this is great to be a part of this.
So our goals today are to introduce you to what the task force is. As I stated, it's brand new, so it's just started in the last couple of months. And then what we want to do today is to work with you to identify some current member practices in student staff development, and then identify kind of what resource needs our membership, NIRSA membership has for student staff development. So the NIRSA Student Staff Development Task Force was formed this summer. Campus Rec is often like one of the largest employers on campus. We are often solely responsible for training and developing our student staff without resources. Some campuses collaborate really well within the division or the college that they sit in, but most of us are kind of left on our own to manage it. So this task force was developed to create a community where members can have kind of ongoing conversations regarding best practices, as well as share resources with each other. We are really great at that within NIRSA, but student staff development has been an area that has been kind of growing and growing within higher ed, within student affairs, and NIRSA is a little bit behind in what resources we are developing for our members. So there's Chrissy and Matthew were kind of the founding members of this task force, and there are 10 members representing all regions, and Erik and I are the members from Region 4. So if you have ideas, if you have needs that you identify after this conversation, you can reach out to any of us, but Erik and I are kind of your closest contacts for that. And we'll try to keep you appraised of what developments come from the task force as we continue on. So I want to share my screen because I'm going to ask you all to go to a website, go to menti.com and enter this code because we want to kind of collect demographic information from you so that we know who's here today, who we're talking to, and that will help us as we continue to gather more focus or more feedback from additional focus groups. If you have multiple members from the same institution, you can feel free to all do it because there is some open-ended questions that we are interested in hearing from each level of staff member that attends today. So as you all get settled into Menti, the first question is, what is your enrollment at your institution? So that's a pretty good kind of shakeup. We've got representation from all areas, which is really helpful. We anticipate that many of our institutions will have the same needs, but they will vary a little bit in terms of like what personnel is dedicated to student staff development by institution. The second question is, what is the number of annual staff that you employ? So a good variety represented here also. And our third question is, how many professional staff are in your department? And then we are interested to know kind of who's attending. So what title does your position have so we can get a feel for who's in our group today? This is great because this is exactly what we were hoping for, was a good variety of representation across each department. And then our final question is, why did you decide to join us for this focus group today? That's not fair, whoever wrote that.
I swear it wasn't me.
All right, well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. This is super good for Erik, Chrissy, Matthew, and I to kind of know as we continue this conversation today, but we'll take all of this back to the committee or to the task force after this focus group today to kind of share all of your feedback.
I think
So we're gonna
something else to add. You know, sorry, Becky, but I think it's great. We had some GAs that were listed there. We have some supervisors, so it's great to be able to get some of that perspective. So really outstanding to have such a good variety of folks on the discussion, from directors to potentially undergraduate students. So really appreciate the variety and diversity of people we have here today. So thank you.
So as this is a focus group, we are going to continue to ask for your participation for the rest of the time that we have you today. You can feel free to unmute yourself and share verbally, or you can write in the chat and we'll kind of follow along. If you're really not comfortable and you want to send us an email afterwards, several people on this call claim that I made them come here. So we'll share our contact information and you can reach out afterwards. But, we kind of wanted to start with, what are some of the challenges that you are facing in deploying like student staff development programming, or just generally in developing staff in your departments? So we've got at Tulane, they're struggling with staff kind of buying into the process. And at WashU, they're currently suffering from Zoom fatigue, which I imagine quite a few of us are in the same boat.
Becky, will you ask the question, please, again?
Sure. What challenges are you facing in developing your staff, whether that's deploying student staff development programming or just general development across your department? So Serena's saying retention of staff. Ross at UT Austin is having buy-in to the process from all levels. Ross, is that from student levels or from professional staff levels?
Yes.
Both.
Yes. I mean, that's the easiest way to answer it, is to get everybody
Yeah.
on the same page and rowing in the same boat.
Right.
My question to Serena, you said retention of staff. Are you talking about professional or are you talking about student staff?
I'm talking, sorry, I'm talking about student staff, we don't have a lot of hours to offer, and, so they're seeking better opportunities, but, we don't know what the spring will look like. So, then we're gonna have to go through another hiring process and such. It's just a cycle.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank
Hey,
you.
Deontay, at Tulane, when you talk about struggling with student staff buy-in, is it something just a specific initiative that you're trying to do, or is it just generally getting students to participate in regular development?
I think it's a little bit of both. Our director initiated what's called the Win the Day program, which basically we take the time to highlight individual staff performance, like during regular activities, and they can redeem different points that they earn for different prizes, such as some swag or even some personal training benefits. But some of the issues that we ran into is that some of the student staff in their position they're not really seen by professional staff all the time. So it's difficult to make that program equal for everyone, to have the opportunity to buy into it. So some students feel like, oh, that's something that maybe the member services team is doing, or that's something that's not for me. And we're trying to figure out a way to make it equitable for everyone so that they can all be bought into it and also have that sense of community and, unitedness with us in the department.
Seems like from some of the other notes, that's buy-in or kind of someone believing in the benefit of the program is a common struggle across campuses. Matthew had posted kind of asking, like, what does that lack of buy-in look like? Are people seeing it the same way that Deontay is, or are other people seeing a lack of buy-in manifest in a different way?
So in my opinion, in my experience, our lack of buy-in can be everything from not allocating some resources to the program that we think is necessary for it to get some traction amongst the students, where we give a plethora of free swag items to a special group of kids that put on one of our bigger events every year. We don't necessarily give the same amount to our students who work every single day in our facilities, and that is noticed by the student employees. But on their side of things too, it's like, well, we come up with this programming to help develop them and to help their next career evolution, but they don't invest themselves in it, because a lot of, when I review resumes, it's still a lot of the simple things of swiped IDs or cleaned restrooms, when they're doing so much more than that, and we're hitting home NACE competencies with them, but they're not necessarily putting two and two together, that if they're an aerospace engineering major, how does their experience within recreational sports really translate into their resume?
Has anyone on this call, had any success where they've been able to sort of mitigate that lack of buy-in and move the needle past just this small number of students that is showing up on a regular basis?
Well, when I was at Wichita State University, developing a program, the out of classroom experiences that we identified with the NACE competencies, those were requirements for potential promotion down the road. So to be eligible for a promotion, they'd have to show that they completed 4 of the 5 or 5 of the 6. The other aspect that we did is, let's say they went ahead and attended 5 of the 6, so they're eligible now for a promotion, but let's say they weren't selected for one reason or another. They were still then qualified for a raise. So we combined their performance evaluation. So we would take their performance evaluation for that year, and we would also then add in, how much they participated in the program. And it would then get them to some type of an increase in pay, something around 75 cents to $1 for the coming year. And that would be per hour. So it was kind of a, if you're looking to be promoted, we want you to have these out of classroom co-curricular experiences to be leaders in our department. But if that doesn't happen, if you go through these, you'll at least get the opportunity to increase your hourly wage by attending those.
So Erik, a follow-up question was, did you pay them for those co-curricular experiences?
The first semester we did, just because we wanted to get it off on a positive note. But after that, once we had enough students that were understanding the value of attending those, we didn't have to. And we pulled it back because, again, we all take our students. Boy, if you've got 400 students and let's say 200 of them participate and they all do 6, and they might be an hour and a half each, that all of a sudden, now you've got your assistant and associate directors looking at you sideways because you're blowing their budgets out of the water because of a program you started. So, yeah.
It's interesting to hear. I'm sorry, Becky, I don't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
Erik, just a follow-up with that. It's interesting to hear that philosophy, that mentality. If it's something that you guys instituted as a criterion for them to be eligible for a promotion, but then you don't pay them for that experience, that's where it doesn't jive with, like, in my head is how can you make it mandatory for their for consideration for promotion, but not pay them for that experience? I'm all for it. That was my follow-up question.
Well, Ross, it's a good question. And trust me when I say, I could go either way on it. It just really comes down to sometimes you're doing these things and you're already in a budget cycle. And so I'm already looking at it and I'm saying, well, if I do this, now it's not like as directors, it's not like we don't have our own little catch of budget dollars somewhere that can help support it. But I really, after time, I wanted it to take root, that they would hear and see the value of these, because whether it led to their promotion or not, we also tried to express to them, this is what will help you when you're interviewing for that career goal, because now they're looking at you and they're saying, and we also titled it. So we worked a little bit off of Wake Forest. They have the Thrive program. We called it I Thrive. And so we would put down their, certificate in I Thrive Student Leadership Development Program. Hopefully that's going to be either a conversation starter for them with an employer to say, let me tell you about these experiences in diversity and in career development and leadership. And if they don't start the conversation, hopefully the employer will ask them about it. Tell me how you earned this. And they start to express all these experiences that they basically volunteered into to earn that. Hopefully that employer then sees them as a contributor and a leader to their organization. Best I got for you, Ross.
I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Miranda shared that one of the things that she's looking for is some of those more entry-level jobs. There's a high turnover rate, so she's looking to add value into those positions, and then, you know, obtain topics and ideas for all staff training. And I think that's important for us to acknowledge that student staff development, you know, not every campus is going to invest in those additional experiences, but our regular trainings, job-specific trainings, staff meetings, all staff trainings before school starts, that is a huge part of the development curriculum that, you know, we as the task force want to help support, as well as some of those more focused additional programs that some campuses have been putting in. Victoria shared that they've had success at various levels, mostly with leadership positions, and that by partnering with student affairs, they've had more buy-in. They also do pay their students, and it's taken several years to get there. And I would say, you know, at Arkansas, we've been at this for several years and had the same struggles of it kind of ebbing and flowing in waves. We don't pay our staff, but we did do a small focus group that was led by a staff member that has not been involved in the staff development programming, and learned a few things from our students, and kind of all the typical things we would expect. They know they need it, but they aren't going to do it until they're really close to graduating. And so, you know, it just has given us some feedback and some questions, some places to consider as we move forward. And this task force has been really helpful in trying to shape kind of ideas. I lost my notes for a second. Okay. So in thinking about your staff development and the challenges you faced, kind of how have those changed in the last 6 months? So or 7 months, I guess. In February, what you faced is likely different than what you're facing today. And what has changed in that process for you? I mean, I could start out because my supervisor's on here, and I don't feel bad saying this, but I had a great plan to try to pay students to participate, and COVID hit and budgets cut, and that opportunity to try to pay students to participate in this programming went totally away. So for us, that layer of challenge that I thought we were going to maybe work around came flying back in my face.
I'll chime in as well. So for the program that I mentioned earlier, we did have a significant amount of students that were participating and earning those points. And when it came time to redeem them, it reminded us that, oh, we don't actually have the things to give you because we cannot purchase that. So it's caused us to kind of pull back and restructure the program to try and reintroduce it to the population in the spring semester, hopefully.
The other thing as well, this is also Wendy from Tulane. We were actually in the process of instituting a new training module using a lot of the LinkedIn learning, but we were also creating our own internal training videos as well. And basically going back to the NAES core competencies, all of our students were going to go through, based on their individual area, a series of videos that each assistant director put together. And as a result of COVID and a position change that we had, that program is on pause right now, but we do look to bring that back up, and they will get paid to participate in the program. But it was really the summer, because of all the virtual learning, that we put the program together, and we're hoping to roll it out this semester, but we're looking at the spring semester to hopefully reimagine what that program could look like and roll it out then.
So Victoria shared that trying to make a meaningful connection and get the feel of in-person trainings while being online is very challenging. And then staff numbers kind of fluctuating, decreasing, and financial concerns. Miranda also has those financial concerns. I think we're all kind of feeling that crunch of finances and kind of the virtual environment, maybe not being as appealing to students to participate in. Is there any other themes in the last 6 months that people have seen as kind of an immediate challenge to moving forward with some staff development? All right. So we wanted to kind of get a little more into, oh, yes, full-time staff pivoting to other areas. Yes. I think a lot of us are feeling that crunch when we see when a vacancy happens in the last 7 months, it stays a vacancy. So we're kind of spread a little thin. We also wanted to kind of know what you all have been doing. So I know Ross mentioned that at UT Austin, they're relying on, or they're using NACE competencies to guide a lot of what they're doing. What competencies or what structure are other departments using in their development? So Miranda says that they don't have like a good structure that they're following, which is totally fine. So everybody's going to approach it a little bit differently.
Yeah, we do a combination of NACE competencies as well as the leadership challenge, and work that into some presentations for our development of our leadership team students as well.
And Victoria's using strengths and NACE. Anybody else out there have anything that's guiding their staff development programming or their staff trainings? Now, we've been bouncing around at Arkansas between a couple of different things, but NACE is always kind of a regular for us. And I'll put Dr. Mike Hoover on the spot and ask him to share the other kind of competencies or theories that we're following in our programming.
Sure, thanks, Becky. So we have a program that we've titled UREC University, and there's a 101 program and a 201 program. 101 really focuses on Aston's social change model of leadership and also Clifton strengths. And the idea is that through that 10 session program, students are better able to understand their self and be able to articulate who they are, hopefully within the lens of looking at potential employment in the near future. And then 201 focuses more on collaboration and really just builds on that first session. But each of those are 8 to 10 one-hour sessions long and usually held throughout an academic semester.
Thanks, Mike.
I think something else to share with folks is you're bound to have other great professionals in student affairs across campus. And many of them, this is core to their work that they do, whether it be through fraternity and sorority life or student involvement in some of those organizations. And so one of the best things we do in NIRSA is share ideas. And one of the other good things we do is steal good ideas. And so I just encourage you to connect with some of the others in student affairs, whether that's your division or not, and speak with them and find out what's working for some of their larger organizations, because they really, out of their organizations, that's kind of the core to the work that they do. And so I just recommend you consider connecting with those folks over in student affairs, Greek fraternity sorority life or Greek life, and Res Life. They do a great job with their RAs, and certainly some of the ones they're grooming to be RAs. So the programming they do is stuff you can go and it's easily transferable. It's relatable to the work you're doing. And really what you're doing is just utilizing other campus experts to help organize the structure for your program. But Res Life, Fraternity and Sorority Life, two organizations you go over and they can probably hand you a binder because we all keep binders even though it's 2020. And they can probably really help you advance maybe or help you establish a foundation to build off of.
Becky, can I add to that?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm navigating mom and work right now, so that's why just to chime in particularly on that idea of using your resources and who's available. Like as I said, it's taken us several years. But I come from a Res Life background and a fraternity and sorority background, so seeing the connections and what we do, like it's already happening. So how it evolved for us is that I initiated actually getting connected with our residence life department to do co-training during springtime together because there's a lot of overlap. Then making sure that our top leaders in student affairs also understood that we all have these commonalities, and NACE was a great shared language that everybody had. So now all student employees for every department within student affairs comes together, and we all then help each other, and everybody goes through that all staff training. So we're able to then from the top down and every single direction, if you are employed in one area and then you transition to a different area while you are in college, we're speaking the same language, and we're all talking about if you swipe a card or if you write an incident report. Like incident report writing and conflict resolution happens on the field, it happens with your peers, it happens on a floor. So we're able to do all that together, and the students are getting that same message and then understanding how does it translate to life after college. But it has been a while, and getting other people to buy in and other directors, other offices. But the great thing is that our students are no longer having to watch us at the front of the room all the time. They hear it from others. And our leadership center has also taken on that same, which I see at many institutions, right? Like the leadership levels, right? So like from first year to fourth year, if you go to these, participate in certain workshops, you kind of get this leadership medal when you graduate, that kind of concept. So it's all now being integrated and part of that training. So it's not like here's Res Life training and here's campus rec training. Oh, and here's this university leadership training. It's all integrated together.
And that also helps those campus resources that are helping, because now they don't have to do 17 different trainings. They can condense that down and it can have a much larger impact. That's a great program, Victoria. Congratulations.
It's a good segue to the kind of next question that we were looking for some feedback on, is what resources are you currently using that you're finding effective in kind of helping plan your trainings and developing programming? And if you aren't finding much, that's okay, because the task force is here to try to develop those resources for you. But if you have some great things out there, we're interested to know what those are.
And I think a way to consider this as well, hi y'all again, could be looking at very specific types of training. So I know for us at UC Berkeley, when we think of like conflict resolution and communication, we recently developed a partnership with like our ombuds office to develop that. So that could be a way to think about this question as well, is, what resources are you tapping into both on campus or within the NIRSA community, or just that you have come across that have assisted you in the past in developing your various trainings for your respective departments and units.
Yeah, and thinking about this kind of immediately, Deonte's question is a really timely one. Like, what are we going to do immediately? The task force is here to develop things, but that takes time. So what are we doing immediately? Well, what resources do we have? What resources do you have on campus? I know at our campus, we just sort of cut and run, and we were like, you know what? We just need to get them, for all staff training, it wasn't anything glitz and glorious because nobody wants to sit on Zoom for 3 hours. So let's just focus on what they need to know to get back to coming into the building and how the programs are changing. And that was that. And we handed it over to their supervisors to deliver instead of coming together in one large group. And it doesn't feel awesome, but it is what it is. And it was kind of how we needed to get through. I don't think that's the best example to provide for, the folks over at Tulane that are trying to plan for the spring, but that was our experience. And we've learned a lot in the fall semester about programming in person versus Zoom that we'll take to the spring. But as we kind of continue on, I guess we want to shift the conversation. And if you have other ideas that you want to put in the chat to help the folks at Tulane and share your ideas and experiences, feel free to continue doing that. One of the big things that we want to know is what resources do you think would be helpful for you? So to come from the NIRSA, to come from the task force, are we looking at, resources like to develop you as a supervisor, examples of programs that have been run at other institutions that you maybe can be inspired by at your institution? What kinds of things do you need from us? I know I don't have a master's degree in higher ed. I'm in sport management. So talking higher ed and learning series it was a foreign language to me. So I've had to do my own work to try to learn that stuff. And some of you might be in that old boat with me. But what kinds of things would you be looking for from the task force in general?
And so types of resources, I think when we think of resources, that we're developing, this is something that, NIRSA in serving in our capacities on the task force can provide to the NIRSA network at large. So types of resources could include more educational sessions, templates of, trainings, types of pre-developed, kind of bare bone trainings that can be, adjusted or modified, aggregated lists of resources for developing staff. So, I think of initiatives that come to mind like Iowa Grow, things like that. So those are all different types of resources that could be provided, but would love to hear from y'all in terms of what would be most helpful as y'all think of your staff and developing your staff and the challenges that have been expressed on the call. If you were able to say like, hey, it would be really great to have this, what this could be.
So if we want to go back to Menti, there's a scale, there's a list of kind of ideas and concepts, and you can kind of assign a number of points to them. And that maybe can help spur some ideas or some conversations of what you might be looking for. And the code again is 5537910. But we're working on establishing a NIRSA community within Connect, and that would have an attached listserv. We've discussed some lunch and learn conversations on specific topics, some weekly engagement activities, maybe something reminiscent of the 21-day EDI content that was released last month, some training templates or training examples from various topics. Work on core competencies and best practices, education opportunities at the national conference or regional conference, small group work. So we've got a lot of different ideas that we're kicking around. We just are trying to learn what might be interesting or might kind of hit what you need. So we've had a couple of additions to the chat. Jeremy Batches from University of Arkansas Fayetteville stated, kind of us, the task force, kind of filtering through updates and information that comes from the national organizations. And I think this is helpful because there's so many opportunities, there's so many theories and competencies and lists that come out to choose from. So maybe interpreting those and kind of breaking it down so our different campuses have something that they can kind of digest a little easier to choose from. Victoria kind of echoes that, like, yeah, about maybe not creating another model, but just helping navigate them. Michelle said a network of people to share ideas, lists of resources for each area that would be helpful. So when you're assigning points to training examples on various topics, are you expecting that looks like Chrissy providing kind of the content of what has been working for her at her university, and then you can review that and maybe get inspired by that to create content for your university?
Y'all, I think this is such a great poll. So thank you to Erik and Becky for creating this. I think a question that comes to mind, I think Becky had just kind of positioned, is when we think of training examples on the various topics, how, and feel free to either put it in the chat or also unmute yourself if you feel comfortable, differentiating between the training examples on various topics and the training templates. So if you could just, if as you were, going through the Menti poll, where did the differentiation come for that? So training examples on various topics versus training templates. What would be that differentiating factor for y'all?
I guess I'll speak, and I can only really speak for myself, but I the way I was looking at it was the templates was more of like a schedule of these are the things that we'll talk about in a training, or these are the things that we need to hit during certain trainings, like all staff trainings, or maybe if we're trying to do professional development, these are the elements that we need to hit. And then with training examples, I was looking at more, what are some activities that we can do that will help us get there, or some videos that we can employ. So that was kind of the difference that I was looking at with them.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle. That was so insightful. Thank you for speaking on speaking to that specific topic. Does anyone else want to follow up on that? Did anyone kind of perceive that a little differently? While we're thinking, thanks, Deontay. A template would be an interesting, engaging way to train staff on various topics. Okay, yeah, such as Jeopardy or other games. Okay. Is anyone seeing this, perceiving this a little differently? Not that there's a right or wrong, so clarifying all, there is no end result in this fact finding. So appreciate y'all being here for this. So off of that topic, I have a quick question. So 11% of y'all had said that weekly engagement activities may be of interest. What would some of those weekly engagement activities, you know, what do you imagine those looking like? What would be of most assistance to y'all? And this could be in like a non-COVID space as well, right? I mean, I know we're in this space now where I can imagine thinking of like a weekly engagement opportunity could look like a lot in between all of our other Zoom calls. But, you know, is there anything that would be, you know, if it's not via Zoom, if it's like an email, you know, what medium, I guess, would be most beneficial if that was something that the task force was to develop? What types of activities would be most helpful? Some of y'all may be thinking now, why did I put weekly? Okay, Victoria, yeah. So more of like a daily, or the racial justice challenge, but doing it on your own, self-pacing engagement, yeah. Deontay, thank you. Not minding Zoom. Appreciate you. Okay, so Ken Morton, Red Cross-based safety scenarios, quizzes for staff to take. Would you mind would you feel comfortable unmuting yourself and speaking to that a little bit further, that idea or that concept?
Sure. Well, we already do those at Campus Rec here. So I've got my safety committee, you know, and they're coming up with quizzes to do, or save of the day, or this, or whatever for our weekly kind of activities that they're doing. Students come into our break room where they clock in and out or take breaks, and there's quizzes up on the board for them to take. So just questions or whatever. But in the past, we've done things as far as, you know, just questions that were in a fishbowl. And when you're going around doing supervision, you can have them draw questions. It's just anything to keep it top of mind. And that's just one area. That's like safety, but that could be about other things too, right? So instead of having, you know, my staff come up with it every week for 50 weeks, having other people who are doing some of those, a place where they could share them. Hey, we did this one and it got really great response from our students, would be cool in some different areas with that. But
thank you. I really like that idea. Oh, go ahead.
The other thing I was thinking about too is if there are people who are willing to help be consultants or speakers, so like a speakers list. Like if somebody is really good at doing X and I want that topic taught to my staff, are they willing to donate an hour of their time to do that for each other? Like, are there people who are willing to do that kind of thing? And so they're not getting it from the same old person all the time, but maybe coming on and doing a Zoom call and training my staff on whatever it happens to be.
I love that. What great ideas. Both for me, I was like, how can I translate that in our department? But then also, I think I love that idea of like the fishbowl topic, right? So coming to, an engagement space and kind of talking through a topic. But then also I love, and I think this is something that's so unique about being in the virtual world now, is that there's this opportunity to have other specialists perhaps facilitate trainings on specific topics that they specialize in. So that we're not always having to be the knowledge holder of everything. Because there's so many of us that are so wise in so many topics. So thank you for sharing both of those ideas.
We're coming to the end of our time. So I wanted to say, if you want to continue this conversation and be added to a Connect community, you can put your name, your institution, and your email in the chat, and we will add you to that as it continues to develop. And to share another opportunity, on November 2nd at noon our time, there is another focus group that will be run by Chrissy and Matthew to kind of continue to develop these ideas and kind of what will come back to you as the task force continues on. The task force was responsible for a series of staff development programming that was about 3 weeks ago, Chrissy, is that right? And there was 3 different topics in 1 week put on by members of the task force and then a couple of other NIRSA members. And the price point was $25 for that content to participate in that educational session and then have access to it after. We hope to continue to provide more content. We don't know exactly what it looks like as we continue to go, if it's free content or if it's going to be for charge. But Megan put the link in for this next focus group. So we hope that more of you can attend from all across the country, and maybe this will kind of marinate with you and you'll have some more feedback at that point.
Yeah,
but
Megan.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, Becky, I don't want to cut you off, but before everyone hops off, Megan, I don't want to put you, Megan, our amazing NIRSA headquarters rep, is on this call as well. So, snaps for her. But wanted to see if there are people who didn't perhaps register for the series and attend the series live. Is there an opportunity for on-demand viewing of that at this point?
Yes, we do have registrations that are still open, and so you will be able to look at the recordings. Let me see if I can grab those links really quickly. It may be easiest if you want to just reach out to me. I can put my email there and I can help get you registered for it if you're interested in looking at the recordings.
I can put a plug in. I couldn't attend all of them, but the one I did attend that was teaching me about more of kind of higher ed learning series. And then I attended a session about virtual training from Chet Miller, who is phenomenal. He's a West Coast guy, so some of us in Region 4 maybe don't know him, but he was incredible. So if you are looking for someone to come in with high energy, like Ken was suggesting, Chet might be your guy. But we want to thank you for coming. Thanks to, of course, conference sponsors. Without them, this free conference wouldn't be possible. And Matt wants us all to follow the social media accounts, which are hopping. There's always content on there. So huge shout out to whoever's running the communication for Region 4. But we'll stay on for a few minutes if you have any questions or anything that you want to share off of the large group.
Everybody, if you want to give some snaps to Becky, she did a lot of this. Chrissy was a huge help too. But we've got some great leaders in the region, including everybody on this call. So thank you, Becky, for doing a great job, and Chrissy and Matt for helping to kind of create some structure. So thank you both and all.
I just threw that link to the student staff training workshop into the chat. So you can check that out too if you wanted to learn more about those 3 webinars.
I think one thing to add to folks, as you're looking at spring semester and what may or may not be possible, give yourselves all a break and just look at what's reasonable given your university situations. But also look at the fact that if you're doing, I know it at times might be inefficient, but doing some small group training, allows you a lot higher level of engagement and interaction with those students that are a part of it. I think the other thing that you can consider doing when you talk about trying to get students to buy in and have value to it is let them be committee members on some of the programs and projects that you're doing. The more they're out leading usually means certainly higher degree of buy-in probably from the other students on staff. It can be much more creative than what you may come up with. You just never know. But also, again, give yourself some grace, be reasonable given the circumstances, but don't just fold up your tent. Always look to be creative and innovative as to how you can still deliver. It might just be packaged a little bit differently. So again, I send that message out. Each university is under different circumstances. So just work within those guidelines, but don't hold yourselves back and realize small group, while inefficient, can be really engaging